All eyes are on Russia, of course, but the director of the FBI is warning that China is the biggest threat America faces right now when it comes to our economy and our American innovation.
Trump has chosen his next 7 candidates to endorse because they have all proven through their actions that they have understood the greatest threat to America is the Chinese Communist Party. Now, is it possible that bots on Twitter could represent over 90% of the daily active users? Well, before Musk spends $44 billion, he has suspended the purchase to figure it out. Let's discuss why Jeff Bezos is calling Joe Biden a liar for saying this about the U.S. deficit.
Under my predecessor, the deficit exploded, rising every single year in the Republicans. Under my plan, we're on track to cut the federal deficit by $1.5 trillion this year. Let me say it again, $1.5 trillion by the end of this fiscal year. The biggest one-year decline in all of history for America.
Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together.
Democrats are the party of crime, the party of chaos, and the party of death. They are. Whether you hate saying it or like saying it, they're the party of death. Republicans are the party of law, order, and life.
Former President Donald Trump has endorsed 7 more candidates who have strong records of tackling serious problems posed by the communist regime in China during their public service. The endorsement came into the picture just a few days before primaries in the states of Idaho, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina on May 17th. As Trump-endorsed candidates have all turned out victorious in the recent Indiana and Ohio primaries, let's take a look at the upcoming 7 candidates who hope to have the same results. Representative Dan Bishop. Being regarded as the conservative warrior by Trump, Bishop was among 14 House Republicans who requested the FBI to provide information related to counterintelligence threats caused by the Chinese Communist Party, and Representative Eric Swalwell, believed to be working under the direction of the Chinese top spy agency. Next is Russ Fulcher, who is one of the 30 co-sponsors of a House bill that focuses on banning China's inhumane state policy of forcefully taking the organs of the prisoners arrested for going against the views of the government. Next is Richard Hudson. He is one of the 4 lawmakers who introduced the Open RAM Outreach Act to protect small and rural communications providers from CCP-backed companies like Huawei and others. Next, Patrick McHenry, who introduced the American PPE Supply Chain Integrity Act that focuses on ending U.S. dependency on Chinese-made personal protective equipment. Then we have David Roser, who heavily criticized the Biden administration's decision to rejoin the World Health Organization by calling the organization the puppet of China. Next, we have Kevin Kiley, who is running for a House seat representing California's 3rd Congressional District. He is well known for opposing California's Democratic Governor, Gavin Newsom, for spending $1 billion to buy masks from a Chinese company called BYD. According to Kevin, BYD has a history of supplying faulty products to the U.S. and also has a strong link with the CCP and their military. Next is Pennsylvania State Senator Doug Mastriano, a Republican who is seeking to become the state's new governor, is well known for announcing legislation in December 2021 that requires U.S. state agencies to immediately withdraw or stop all their investments in CCP-controlled companies.
We're still fighting this war. That fight went on and on and on and on.
We're Americans. We're tired of being lied to and played by politicians and politics. So how we pull this off here in this Walk as Free People movement is we got to stand together. As Benjamin Franklin said in Philadelphia just down the road in 1776, if we don't hang together, we'll hang separately. So, you know, we come from a diverse bunch of backgrounds, different life experiences, but we're standing in common cause for our freedoms, our constitutional rights.
With voters in Pennsylvania's gubernatorial race failing to sense the energy of the upcoming election, a massive wave of energy has now changed the entire aura of the state after Trump decided to endorse State Senator Doug Mastriano over former Republican Lou Barletta. Mastriano, who is seeking to become the state's new governor, is well known for announcing legislation in December 2021 that requires U.S. state agencies to immediately withdraw or stop all their investment in Chinese Communist Party-controlled companies. To back his position more, Trump stated there is no one in Pennsylvania who has done more or fought harder for election integrity than State Senator Doug Mastriano. He is a fighter like few others and has been with me right from the beginning, and now I have an obligation to be with him. He is a man who will never let you down. Mastriano, on the other hand, replied, I am honored to receive the endorsement from President Trump today. But the honor is not for me. It's for the millions of hardworking Pennsylvanians who want their individual liberties restored, power returned to the people, and for their elected leaders to fulfill the American First and Pennsylvania First agenda.
Mystery surrounds the high-security lab at the Wuhan Institute of Virology that handles the world's most dangerous pathogens, making it the target of conspiracy theories about the origin of the virus.
China's Batwoman has a lot of explaining to do here. Reports say the Wuhan lab had access to some 22,000 virus samples and sequences. 22,000 samples. And all of these have now been taken offline.
So it really makes you wonder why they would feel so comfortable hiring people from CNN, from the West, from the BBC. And it's because they know that they're not going to criticize the Chinese Communist Party because the evidence is the work that they've done for their former outlets. I'd even add one more name in there, an individual by the name of Jonah Kessel, who used to actually be, or is currently serving as the director of cinematography over at the New York Times, but he actually used to work for China Daily. He did their entire website redesign back in 2010. He actually used to tweet about how much he loved working for the Chinese Communist Party until we exposed his tweets. He ended up deleting all them. But there really is a concerning relationship between a lot of Western media outlets and their Chinese Communist Party counterparts.
After multiple attempts to deceive the world about his connections with China's Wuhan lab, which has been accused of being the place of origin of the coronavirus, some astonishing facts have finally come forward to prove the infamous Dr. Anthony Fauci actually has a lot to do with the release of COVID-19 to the world. The discovery was made after Natalie Winters, an investigative reporter at the National Pulse, uncovered a confidential clause within a contract between Chinese Wuhan Institute of Virology and Galveston National Laboratory of the University of Texas Medical Branch. And what makes this confidential clause so explosive is that the Galveston National Laboratory is a division of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, headed by none other than Dr. Anthony Fauci. The evidence became more clear when Natalie read Section 16 of the contract. Here's what it said. All cooperation and exchanges, documents, data, details, and materials shall be treated as confidential information by the parties. The confidentiality obligation shall be applicable throughout the duration of this MOU and after it has been terminated. The party is entitled to ask the other to destroy and or return the secret files, materials, and equipment without any backups. Now, it should be noted this is not just an agreement. There was something dangerous going on for which they agreed not to share the information even to the government of the United States about what they were doing. If you check the last statement again, it clearly states about empowering each party to destroy the secret files or anything related to files without any opportunity of creating a backup for it. Now, there is another investigation I want to tell you about involving James LeDuc, a lab director of the Galveston National Laboratory. LeDuc warned the top bat coronavirus researcher at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, Shisheng Li, who is also known as the Batwoman, about the possibility of the U.S. investigating the lab regarding its role in developing the coronavirus. The discovery was made through the emails shared between the two labs recovered by the activist group Judicial Watch under the Freedom of Information Act. The emails showed that on the April 16, 2020, David Franz, who was the former commander of the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Disease, heard from someone close to Senator Rubio discussing the possibility of an investigation into the Wuhan lab for being the origin of COVID-19. Soon, David Franz warned LeDuc about the action, and then LeDuc went on to warn the infamous Batwoman, Shisheng Li. The emails also revealed that in 2006, LeDuc received around 32 grants from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, headed by Dr. Anthony Fauci. Natalie Winters concluded her investigation by stressing that social media fact-checkers play a massive role in the distribution of fake news in the world. For example, pharmaceutical company Pfizer was funding Facebook's fact-checking partner, and another well-known fact-checker was actually being funded by China-owned TikTok. She said no company that's receiving funding from TikTok could be a neutral arbiter in terms of the origins of COVID-19.
When it affects my budget, it affects my family also. I can't afford to buy the food that they need because I got to put it in gas.
In order to pay for gas, groceries, and other essentials, Americans are increasingly turning to credit cards to make ends meet, even though rising interest rates make that debt more expensive. 229 million credit card accounts were opened in the first 3 months of the year.
I never thought at 73 I would be going through, making these kinds of choices.
I want every American to know that I'm taking inflation very seriously, and it's my top domestic priority. Look, I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it.
With the general public criticizing the Biden administration for the rising prices, corporate giants like Jeff Bezos has also stepped forward to confirm Biden's weak leadership qualities. The recent virtual spat between the two occurred on May 14th, when Biden boasted about a reduction in the federal budget deficit. He said, "Under my predecessor, the deficit increased every single year. This year, we are on track to cut the deficit by $1.5 trillion, the biggest one-year decline ever. It matters to families because reducing the deficit is one of the main ways we can ease inflationary pressures." However, Jeff Bezos, as well as critics, did not agree with this statement and argued that the expenditure of the government has massively been reduced because they've ended the COVID-19 pandemic relief spending, which proves that the Biden administration cannot take complete credit for the reduction of the federal budget deficit, because COVID-19 receded automatically despite the government trying for years to stop it from spreading. The battle of words between Bezos and the Biden administration got more intense when on May 13th, Biden tweeted, "You want to bring down the inflation? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share." The tweet was made in furtherance of his new minimum tax on billionaires agenda presented during the 2023 fiscal year budget plan, which focuses on charging a 20% minimum tax rate on the wealthiest U.S. families. However, what he is failing to notice is that imposing heavy taxes on such corporations will encourage them to dilute that pressure by increasing the prices of their products, thus resulting in more inflation and robbing the consumers of their savings. By calling this tweet a misdirection, Bezos replied by stating, "The newly created Disinformation Board should review this tweet, or maybe they need to form a new non-sequitur board instead. Raising corporate tax is fine to discuss. Taming inflation is critical to discuss. Mushing them together is just misdirection." Furthermore, he said, "In fact, the administration tried hard to inject even more stimulus into an already overheated inflationary economy, and only West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin saved them from themselves. Inflation is a regressive tax that most hurts the least affluent. Misdirection does not help the country."
It's more chaos in the Elon Musk Twitter saga. The world's richest man said his $44 billion deal to take over Twitter, quote, is temporarily on hold pending details supporting calculation that spam/fake accounts represent less than 5% of users.
What do you make of this? Once again, in his typical style, he tweeted out this news that the deal is on hold. The stock is plummeting this morning.
As each day passes, the Twitter deal is becoming more intense as Elon Musk has now put the Twitter purchase on hold after conflict of views about the analysis of identifying spam bots in the platform. Spam bots are fake accounts that focus on boosting the engagement of the people, even if it drags them towards misleading information. Musk's analysis claims that fake accounts dominated by spam bots in the platform could consist of 90% of the Twitter users, whereas Twitter, on the other hand, claims it consists of only 5% of the users. Furthermore, Twitter's legal department is now blaming Musk for breaking their non-disclosure agreement after revealing his analysis of the spam bots on the platform. However, Musk still claimed that he is ready to purchase the company and also guided his followers recently with a tweet on how to protect themselves from the spam bots. He said, "You are being manipulated by the algorithm in ways you do not realize. Easy to switch back and forth to see the difference." Then he gave the steps one should take to prevent being hacked by the spam bots. You can also follow these steps right now to protect yourself from the misleading information. Here's what he said. Tap home button, tap stars on upper right of the screen, select latest tweets. This way you will be able to see the difference. Furthermore, he said, I am not suggesting malice in the algorithm, but rather that it is trying to guess what you might want to read, and in doing so inadvertently manipulate, amplify your viewpoints without you realizing this is happening.
In other news, India bans wheat exports to control the rising prices within the country. The notification states that the government had taken the decision in order to manage the overall food security situation in the country.
Citing a threat to food security, the Modi government today prohibited the export of wheat. Now, according to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, this decision was taken because of the sudden spike, or in view of the sudden spike in global prices of wheat arising out of many factors.
The world's second largest producer of wheat, India, has now canceled all its plans for wheat exports after witnessing rising risk of food security in its neighboring countries and as well as around the world. In 2021, India exported around 7 million tons of wheat worldwide. And this year, it had the target of exporting around 10 million tons of wheat. However, new factors like the rise in wheat prices by 40% and the supply chain effects from the Russia-Ukraine war has now forced India's Directorate of Foreign Trade to issue an urgent notice to all the companies. Other factors include an 8-year high inflation and destruction of wheat production due to record-breaking heat waves in the country. Now, according to a Mumbai-based dealer with a global trading company, the ban is shocking. We were expecting curbs on exports after 2 to 3 months, but it seems like the inflation numbers changed the government's mind. Although the ban on exports could ease down the cost of wheat in the country, its shortage of supply around the world will push the country to increase its prices. As Russia and Ukraine were responsible for 30% of the wheat and 20% of corn supplies worldwide, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization also recently warned about the rising global food crisis. The organization specifically requested the countries and the experts to increase their investment on innovation to ensure better food security after witnessing 40% of food crops being destroyed by pests and disease. Furthermore, the organization also expressed the areas where innovation should be focused. For example, pesticides, pest management, and increasing the health of soil, seed, and pollinators. Now, according to David Beasley, the executive director of the UN World Food Program, the war in Ukraine is turning the breadbasket of the world to breadlines for millions of its people. India, on the other hand, has stated that it will allow its export of wheat only in cases where a request is made by a country to meet their food security needs. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.